would you call roll?
Yes. Bob Smith.
Here.
Randy Croft.
Here.
Linda Meiner.
Here.
Michelle Ott.
Here.
Jason Shaw.
Here.
All present.
Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a regular meeting of the City School Board for the purpose of conducting our business. We are going to dispense with the greeting of the visitors for tonight because we don't have a sign-in, but welcome all. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, they will stand as presented. Public participation, it's my understanding that there is no one for public participation tonight. So we will move on to first reading of new revised policies. This is not a time when we vote on them. This is just the first reading. Next meeting, we would actually vote on them. But Bob or Mike, would either of you like to give more information on these?
Okay, I'll take it. We discovered when Dr. Bartek came on board and they began asking us about our capital asset policy, so they knew when something needed to be amortized for depreciation, those types of things. We discovered that our policy for capital assets did not get updated at the time that the administrative guidelines were updated. So basically we are correcting that situation now, and since the administrative guidelines is really what we're following and what we've set for a couple of years now, instead of outlining everything that's in the guidelines in the policy, what we're saying is that, let's see if it's in here, the policy will read, when we have it in place, where do I bring it up? It will read that the superintendent will establish administrative guidelines that outline the process of accounting for the district's fixed assets. Then we can eliminate that possibility of one getting changed and not the other. That'll refer back to the guidelines.
Anyone have any questions on that? Next month on the agenda. Next up, Treasurer's Report.
Okay. First item are the minutes, financial reports, and invoices paid. I'd like to request a motion to approve the minutes, financial reports, and invoices paid as they are presented.
Do I have a motion?
Also moved.
Linda? Michelle? Good thing I was looking that direction, right? Discussion, Mike?
Pardon me?
Discussion?
Yes. Since we didn't have the financials available at the June meeting, we will be kind of catching things up here for May at the June meeting. We're now going to be clear through the end of the fiscal year. And really, as I look back, there wasn't much that really happened of any consequence in the month of May itself. Really, any of the information that I share here is really applicable and most important that we will look at since we are through the end of the fiscal year. And we'll start on the revenue side. And for our foundation payments, the unrestricted, you'll notice that we ended the year at $630,000 less than what the original budget was. And that is completely due to the reduced funding that we received over the last three payments. You know, we talked about that a lot when we were looking at our 5-year forecast and so forth. If you see, the impact was actually $646,286. So had it not been for that reduction due to the economic changes that happened after, March 15th and all of the COVID-related things that happened, we'd have been right on target from that standpoint. On property tax allocation for the year, we ended up just slightly over by $26,380, so basically right on target. Probably the thing to remember here is if you look at the comparison to last year, we were 115,000 less, and that is due to the phase out of our tangible personal property. You know, that's been occurring for some time now, and there'll be another, I believe it's about 50% will phase out this year too. When we're in 2024, we will no longer have any of that reimbursement for the tangible personal property that was eliminated. Boy, it's been, I bet, at least 10 years ago now, I think. 2008, yeah. So, all of the revenue ended up better than budget, well over the budget. Some of that's going to be due to just the conservative nature of the way I budgeted to begin with, because that can fluctuate so widely from year to year. A couple things that did help to even make that probably better than what it would have been anyway was we did receive a Bureau Workers' Comp refund of $80,000. We did have the insurance claim payment that wasn't factored in at $46,000, and then our special ed excess payments that we actually received instead of those that we pay was in the amount of a little over $40,000. So all in all, the overall revenues year to date were $268,000 less than what we had budgeted, and really you can attribute that to the reduced foundation funding that that was eliminated at the end of the year. On the expenditure side, salary and benefits for the entire year were $544,000 less than was budgeted. And if you remember, about halfway through the year when we had made the payment for the board share of the employee high deductible, we were just slightly behind budget, and I commented at that time that, you know, as we finished the year, that would improve, and it did. So we ended up ahead of budget there, better than budget. So, and really there was nothing else unexpected. Of course, the year to date compared to prior years is you know, much more than it was last year, which we expected since increased benefits from increased health insurance premiums, increased salary amounts. So that was not an unexpected comparison there. Really, the purchase services are the ones that they were the surprise this year. The June year-to-date budgeted amount was less than actual by $915,000. There were several areas actually that really contributed to that. One area is the open enrollment, the John Peterson Autism Scholarships, CCP and the community school payments. And we talk about these, it seems like year in and year out. You just never know where they're going to go. And in this case, this year, we finished the year $280,000 more than what was last year. And I'm going to compare these to last year because that's kind of the basis that I use for budgeting those, because they can fluctuate. I try to add some to them each year, anticipating some growth, but in each of these cases, they grew much more than was expected. So those were $280,000 more than were budgeted. Another area that was pretty significant was our OT-PT services, which was $452,000 more than we had anticipated. That one's kind of related to the professional and instructional services, which was $126,000 more. In both of those, a lot of that was related to preschool. Being the first year that we had it, not knowing what to expect, especially in the OT-PT, what students were going to need what services and to what extent. So that one, in both cases, those are really attributed to a lot of the preschool things, just being our first year and not knowing what to truly expect with that. And then, let's see here, what else do we have in there? Oh, and then our special ed tuition and their excess costs. It actually is $183,000 more than than we had budgeted. And actually this year was as high as I've ever seen those costs in any one year for as long as I've been at Sidney. So, and that's just a function of having some students that we were not able to serve because of their needs here and were placed in either a residential facility or some other program that better fit their handicap. Supplies and materials was really a pleasant surprise because that's one area where we had anticipated that might be higher because of initiating a new program this year, when in actuality it was a lot less than we had budgeted. So that was a big plus and helped us to kind of somewhat offset the purchase service items that were much more. And then capital outlay basically came on target. We spent $12,000 less than what we had actually budgeted there. And so basically overall, our expenditures were $238,000 more than what we had budgeted. You know, that was really helped. Could have been significantly more if we hadn't been helped by being conservative in salaries and benefits, and that they came in better than budgeted. And then also for the salaries, you know, that was helping out that number also. I mean, really, 230,000, it's a big number, obviously, but still was less than 1% less than, or 1%, only, it was less than 1% more than what we had budgeted for the entire year.
Any questions or conversation? Mike, would you please call roll?
Meininger,
Yes.
Lott,
Yes.
Schaffner,
Yes.
Croft,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is our list of approved attorneys. I would like to request a motion to approve the following list as the Board of Education attorneys: Ennis Britton Company LPA, John A. Pagurski, Attorney at Law, Rich and Gillis Law Group LLC, and Dinsmore and Scholl LLP.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Jason?
Second.
Michelle? Any questions on this? This is just so that we have the list of the firms that we use.
Correct.
And that's for both areas, right? Both superintendent and treasurer.
Do you want to highlight which ones are kind of?
Sure. Yeah, Ennis Britton and John Pagurski, they would be kind of our general school law attorneys. We've used John for a long time. Ennis and Britton is new. We felt that, especially with John as an independent, he's just on his own. He's getting towards the end of his career, and so we thought it was wise to start bringing on another group, where Ennis Britton is a larger Cincinnati-based law firm. There is one specific attorney that we do go to that we're going to be using, but in the event that he's not available or something of that nature, there are other attorneys. Where with John, if he's not available, there isn't anybody else. Rich and Gillis, from time to time, we will have notice of complaints through the auditor's office. And so when we have that, let's say a large company believes that the value of their property is too high. And so they'll submit a notice, a complaint to try to get it lowered. We really began using them back when all of the real estate values just plummeted, if you remember that time during that one economic downturn. And so we had an unbelievable number of notices at that time. And I can't even remember at this point who suggested this group, but they really stepped in because that's what they do. And they were able to, in many cases, have the valuation not lowered as much as what was requested, saving us a lot of tax dollars. And so, you know, we're not using them for, you know, Joe down the street that thinks his house values. That's just insignificant when in the whole scheme of it, but we have had some large corporate entities that put that notice in, and so they will represent us in those cases. And then Dinsmore and Scholl, they're the bond attorneys, so when we have levies on the ballot, they draft the language and those types of things.
Any questions or conversation?
I asked this question ahead of time, but I figured it would be good to ask, as far as if a retainer is required for these.
No, there's no retainer for any of them. They're all on a per hour basis.
Any other questions? Mike, would you please call roll?
Schaffner.
Yep.
Lott.
Yes.
Meininger.
Yes.
Croft.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is an invoice from Shelby County Board of Developmental Disabilities. I'd like to request a motion to approve the attached Shelby County Board of Developmental Disabilities invoice in the amount of $21,734.66 for the 2019-2020 school year for preschool services excess cost for 2 students.
Do I have a motion?
Also move.
Linda? Mandy? Michelle?
One of those ends.
And this one actually I'm presenting to you because of the dollar amount. There were 2 students, and we still, even with all the stuff that went on with the switch and things with the Shelby County Board of DD, we still have a relationship with them that's, we still have a good relationship with them. And there were 2 students that between them and our special ed department felt that the needs that they had would be better served if they were in their program. And we knew about this, we discussed it, so this wasn't a surprise, but somewhere along the line last year, the purchase order didn't get put in. So they sent the bill in July for last year's services, which isn't unusual, but when we went to go pay it, there wasn't a purchase order in place. So because it's over $10,000, it needs to be brought to the board for approval.
Any other questions? Mike, would you please call roll?
Meininger.
Yes.
Lott.
Yes.
Croft.
Yes.
Schaffner.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is speech therapist purchase services contract. I'd like to request a motion to enter into a purchase services contract with Megan Napke for speech therapist services at a rate of $50 per hour for a maximum of 550 hours for the 2020-2021 school year.
Do I have a motion? Michelle?
Second.
Mandy? And Mike, you said this is someone we've used in the past,
Yeah,
correct?
we've used Megan in the last year, and it's in the preschool program, and she actually was an employee of our district at one time, so she's very familiar with our district and so forth. Well, we used her in the preschool program because of not knowing the clientele from year to year, what speech services are necessarily going to be needed. So while we use some speech services through the ESC, she's available for anything additional. We don't have to contract for an entire year at a specific amount, that she's on a per hour basis. Actually, it's the same per hour basis as we used last year. And then Beth works and with her for a maximum number of hours. So we know we won't go over that.
Any other questions? Mike, would you please call roll?
Lott.
Yes.
Croft.
Yes.
Schaffner.
Yep.
Meininger.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries. And the last item is a copier contract. I'd like to make a motion to approve a contract with Perry Protech for the rental of copier equipment for a period of 5 years, beginning July 2020 at a base cost of $8,844.10 per month.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Michelle? Linda?
Is
Um,
that the we usually use?
That's who we currently use, and we actually had 2 years left on our existing contract. But our local guy, Jason Kester, stopped in it's been several weeks ago now, said that he had been reviewing his different clients' accounts and so forth, and that we would be eligible to replace all of our equipment with new equipment at a lower per-click cost and a lower monthly cost for the base. So it just made sense to do it.
Any other questions? Mike, would you please call roll?
Lott,
Yes.
Meininger,
Yes.
Croft,
Yes.
Schaffner,
Yep.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next up is our superintendent's report.
Good evening. I'd like to request a motion for personnel items as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Jason, Michelle? Any questions by board members?
Yes, I can. Mr. Ward, do not act like your dad did.
No, I do not.
I'll give you yes in that. His dad was my teacher. My favorite teacher.
Okay. Let's hope so.
Can you explain what a dean of students will do for those who this is new to?
So Dean of Students is a new position that is thrown at a new position because we did have a job description already in place. But basically Mike will do a lot of some administrative duties, but it will be all student-centered, so he will not be evaluating teachers, but he will be doing mostly student supervision, student discipline, attendance, those kinds of things. Just sort of kind of alleviates the gap that we were going to have, and it's paid for because we had a teacher resign that we did not replace, because we worked a better schedule around to where we didn't have to replace that teacher, so that's how the position is paid for.
And then, I know we've got some changes in here that might look confusing to people looking at the list as far as Renee shifting from,
Yeah, so the title on that says classified employees change of assignments, and when under position it says aide to secretary, so that's the change. She's changing from an aide to a secretary.
Any other questions? Mike, would you please call roll?
Schaffner,
Yep.
Lott,
yes.
Meininger,
Yes.
Croft,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, I'd like to request a motion to pay the 2 retirement incentives that we'd thrown out to try to save us some money for next year.
Do I have a motion?
Also moved.
Linda?
Second.
Michelle? Any questions by a board member? Anything you want to add?
No.
Hearing no questions, Mike, will you call roll?
Meininger,
Yes.
Lott,
Yes.
Croft,
Yes.
Schaffner,
Yep.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mandy, do we have a legislative report?
Yes. I'll even use this.
Hello. I hate using microphones. I just need to make that statement to start. Okay, so there's been tons going on. If you watch the governor at all when he does his updates, you'll have already seen that he had released the guidance for reopening schools. Nice booklet, and it was kind of a guide that went to the health department then to help with the reset and restart, and that is available on the state website. The Senate passed House Bill 606. This vote amended the Senate Judiciary Committee, and it prohibits bringing civil action for damages for injury, death, or loss to a person or property against businesses. This one came about with the COVID, if any of the exposures due to COVID. Senate Education Committee passed House Bill 123, requiring public schools to implement certain programs on and provide instruction in suicide awareness and prevention and violence prevention. This amendment provides $2.5 million in payments to dropout prevention and recovery e-schools that are not operated by a for-profit entity, and they have to have received exceed standards ratings on their graduation component. U.S. Department of Education activity, they made their final ruling regarding the CARES Act relief funds and how that will kind of be divided up between private and public schooling. And with that, then kind of the development of that with the Ohio Controlling Board approved a request to use $100 million from the CARE Act's relief fund to use for COVID expenses. This was a funding that was an addition to the $440 million that was allocated to the K-12 schools from the CARES Act. Got to jump here. They also released, one of the things that I listened to was a report that kind of went over all the different things with the blended learning and the remote learning plans and kind of the difference there. And if I understood this correctly, remote learning encompasses blended learning, but blended learning does not encompass remote. Is that correct? Does that sound right? There's one or the other. Which one have we applied for? Are we remote, like as far as you have to have the paperwork in, regardless of if you're going to use it?
So we did send in the initial form that said that we were going to have either both blended and remote learning.
Okay.
If we needed.
Gotcha.
And then we also have to submit a plan, which we're currently working on. But the initial form had to go in by July something, which I sent in right away.
Yeah, we were already listed. It had a list. when
That's
we
good.
went to
That's
it.
good. We were listed.
We were listed as already returned the paperwork, so I just didn't know which one for sure.
And then we have to have a plan that we have to submit. And ODE does not have to approve it. We just have to submit it.
Right. Well, anyways, there is a difference between those two, so that was interesting. Let's see, I've already covered that there. DeWine went through the contact sports and the trial period, which was to end, that trial period it ended on July 15th. Are we still moving forward? What are we doing?
So it's apropos that you would ask that question today. The superintendents of the league met today.
Okay.
And we are planning on moving forward with all fall sports, with some adjustments and things that we'll have out once it's kind of all solidified. But at this point, we plan on still having, as long as the governor allows us to, we're going to have fall sports.
Great. Governor activity, additionally, he signed Senate Bill 4 that will provide the $300 million to the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission for K-12 schools. I think that's the general synopsis of what's occurred over the last month.
And just a quick update, our district plan, reopening plan, is going to go, it's going to be live tomorrow morning. We still have one group that we haven't met with, but due to the timing, like today, for instance, we had 4 phone calls of people wanting to go to K-12 online because they don't know that part of our plan is going to have a remote learning option on it. So we need to get that plan out there as quick as possible. Part of the plan, it says, is going to be flexible and may change, but we are going to offer a remote learning option, and we need to keep any more people from, and we're trying to keep these 4 people that called today, keeping them from going to K-12 and using our remote learning option because it costs us $6,000 a student to go to that. So we're going to put that plan out in the morning, the ones that I shared with you, and we, again, there may be some adjustments and things that may need to change on it. Quite frankly, depending upon how things go with the governor, it may be on a constant change. But as of right now, using the guidelines from the Shelby County Health Department and what the Shelby County superintendents all put together, we took our plan, fine-tuned it. We're doing some things differently than they're doing, but I think it's going to work out well for us.
Is the health department going to put theirs online?
So their guidelines, yes, I did ask Erica if they were going to post their on their website, and they are. And then once we get a link, then we're gonna put that on our website as well, so people can see that we've gone from them. They've seen the county plan, and again, they're not authorized, quote, to approve it, but we're supposed to work together with them, and that's what we did. So they were actually fine with everything that's on it as of right now.
Any other questions on the legislative report? Favorite time. Do we have a UVCC report?
Can you hear me? I can't hear myself, so can you hear that? Okay. On June 22nd, the board members met in regular session. Mrs. Reeves, the board president, mentioned in her report that at the conclusion of the regular meeting, we would be going into executive session to review the evaluation of the treasurer, Mr. Fraley. She also mentioned that because the class trip to Yellowstone had been canceled due to the coronavirus, the money that had been collected will be set aside for next year's trip, and the Career Center will receive vouchers from the airlines. Dr. Luce stated that the teaching staff was very pleased with the compensation package that the board had recently approved. They understood that everyone needs to be sensitive to the area districts that are suffering, as well as the unemployment situation throughout Shelby and Miami counties. Dr. Luce is waiting for the governor's plan to be made public. Our biggest concern is with transportation and the wearing of masks. Mr. Fraley, the treasurer, reported that the general fund received the homestead rollback reimbursement payments from the state a month later in the amount of $369,120.78 from both Miami and Shelby counties. May was a 3-pay month for UVCC. Thus, the expenses were higher than normal months. Even with the new tax levy and with the freeze or cuts in the state funding, UVCC is still receiving about 52% of the revenue from the state. On the adult ed side, UVCC received the final reduced foundation payment for the year. The state budget cuts amounted to 3.67%, or $10,482. Mr. Fraley stated that the UVCC is essentially done collecting revenue for the year in the adult world. The board approved several donations, 4 textbook adoptions, a list of substitutes, many supplemental contracts, and employee stipends. We also approved the hiring of people to fill 95 part-time and full-time positions, as well as 20 volunteers were also approved. We adjourned and went into executive session.
Thank you. Any questions on the report? Next item, I know of no reason that we should move into executive session. Are there any? Hearing nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Linda? Michelle? Any discussion? Mike, would you please call roll?
Meininger,
Yes.
Lott,
Yes.
Schaffner,
Yep.
Croft,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And a big thank you to Greg Schneider, who helped us out getting this all set up tonight. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you all.